the beauty of us getting to age and these shifts are happening.
You're listening to Perimenopausal Conversations for Busy Women, previously Essential Oil Conversations for Busy Women. This is a show where Meg, a functional nutritionist, and Heather, a busy sports mom, are figuring out midlife, wellness, and hormones right alongside you.
All right, Heather, so what are we talking about today?
We are going to be making some changes, Meg. So why don't you tell us why we are going to be making some changes?
Yeah, so a few different reasons. First of all, we realize that about 70% of our listeners are in the 35 to 59 age bracket, which happens to be us as well. And I think even you and I in our friendship, many years of friendship, our conversations have shifted and
evolved, maybe.
Yeah, evolved. And specifically, I think a lot of what we're talking about right now is life in perimenopause, life in that sandwich generation where you've got young kids, but we also have older parents that might need support. And we feel like all of that is more top of mind than essential oils. Now, we both still love and use essential oils and will continue to talk about essential oils. But the life stage seems to be the bigger topic for us right now. Do you agree?
I do agree. So if we're going to be making these changes and we're going to be talking to our most listened demographic, why don't you tell us what is not going to be changing about the show?
Yeah, so we're still going to be showing up consistently to, produce these podcasts. So that's not changing. And then we're still going to be us. So we're not changing our personality. We weren't certain personas before. So it's still just us talking, and we're probably going to keep this still pretty short as well so that it's easy for you to consume these. But I think it will be more interesting for people because our listeners are in this life stage as well. I hope that it feels even more like you're just having a conversation with your girlfriends.
Yes. Okay, so what are we changing? What are we going to be talking about differently at this point?
So definitely perimenopause is going to be a topic we're talking about. In fact, I think it's kind of funny. Before we hit record, Heather and I both talked for, 20, 30 minutes about different changes in our bodies that we probably should have just gone ahead and hit record for. So we'll be talking about perimenopause. I think there's a lot of information out there, but it's confusing to know what's right, what's wrong. I think there's still confusion as well where people think, oh, this is just me getting older. And that's not always the case. So helping with that. We'll be talking about hormone shifts, stress management. That's a huge part for women in this demographic is stress and the impact it has on our hormones and our health. We'll be talking about energy management because we all feel a little bit tired or burnt out and how to manage that better. Talking about busy mom life. And so that will be more for you, Heather.
Your dog mom.
Yeah, exactly. Just midlife exhaustion, boundaries. I think that's going to be a really interesting topic. I think it would be cool even if we had some experts come in and help with some of these conversations as well. And like boundaries would be a really great one. And then sustainable wellness. So still that wellness focus. And, of course, part of that is essential oils, but it's just one of the tools in the toolbox. So we've got a lot of different things that we can pull in that space. So, for me as a functional nutritionist, I can pull that in. For you, working in the physical therapy space for so long, you definitely have a lot to say about helping and supporting the body in this phase as well. And so we'll be talking about wellness still.
There are quite a few podcasts on this topic already. Why should someone continue to listen to us about this versus any of the other number ones that are available?
Yeah. So this was interesting and I think enlightening for both of us when we started looking into it and seeing if we should even shift directions. Because like you said, there are a lot of people out there talking about this, but most of them are doctors or they are people who are deep into the research and I do actually spend quite a bit of time researching perimenopause because that is within my functional nutrition area. That's kind of what I specialize in. But I don't know that those conversations are relatable. And searching, I really could not find very many conversations or very many podcasts where it truly was just women going through this phase of life and talking about it, and then talking about it from a holistic standpoint. So we're not going to be talking about like the perfect way to do hormones or something like that. Not saying that that's not a viable thing for us, but that's not our area of expertise. But just to be relatable and talk about what's happening and the changes we're noticing in our bodies, and just kind of working through this space in our own lives, but knowing it's probably more relatable than a lot of the podcasts out there where it is just an expert telling you what the research says.
Well, and I will admit that I was a little resistant to this topic, even though we were talking more and more about things that fell into this category. And so it makes sense. And maybe I was in denial that I also fell into this category. So if you're listening and you feel like, oh, that's not me, they're not talking to me anymore, stick around a little while. I think we actually might be. And I'm hoping that you can still learn a lot from our short but sweet conversations about things that are just happening to us that I assume we are not the only ones they're happening to.
Yeah. And you know, my husband and I talk a lot about topics that we'd never heard about before, and now we hear everywhere. And so like meniscus tears was one a few years ago where nobody talked about it, and then suddenly every sportscaster and was talking about it. And I feel like perimenopause is another one of those things where suddenly more and more people are talking about it, but I think it shocks a lot of people to realize that the average age of starting perimenopause is age 35. And so, you know, in our late 30s, these changes start happening and we think there's something wrong with our bodies versus, no, that's part of the beauty of us getting to age and these shifts are happening. And so kind of celebrating that as well and knowing what's normal, what's not. And yeah, just recognizing that this is part of our life as women.
So we hope you'll continue to join us, and we look forward to more conversations.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This podcast is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease.